Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid conservative and just plain right. Well, welcome to it. It's the end of the week. This is the day we like to call Friday. That means we got a sound effect. Hit it, man. Friday. Outstanding. Congratulations for making it through another week. And we're going to take you all the way to go home time. And pushing the buttons with expert finesse is Big Rig on the board. Hey, man, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. You got plans for the weekend?
Just working.
Chilling, working,
hanging with the family.
Those are the best weekends.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you. People talk about taking trips, going on the beach or whatever. You know what? Just a weekend at the house is all right once in a while.
I agree. I'm not so much a fan of going on vacation, especially with little kids.
That's not a vacation.
No, it's not.
That's work.
You're watching your kids in a different spot. That's it.
That's exactly what it is. All right, hey, we got a great show laid on for you. Very cool show coming up first out the gate. Cultural landmines. Oh, you know what? I'm naming it without even playing. I got a triple dipper. Hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper. 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. And I forgot to mention, okay, I need to drink my coffee. At 3 o'clock today, Paul Breyer, who was going to call in the other day about market issues, well, I had this new dipper done, already prepared. And I thought, wait a minute, this is better for Paul Breyer than the last one. And since our phone screwed up last time, I texted him last night and said, hey, dude, what are you doing tomorrow at 3? He's coming on the show. So Paul Breyer from Inspire Solutions is coming on to talk to us about number 1 of the Triple Dipper, cultural landmines. Y'all, that's a thing. It's amazing how corporate America is so willing to walk through minefields and step on landmines. It's a self-inflicted wound. And yet the minefield is clearly marked. You don't have to go there. The interesting thing is there's a serious pushback, and the company that Paul Breyer works for, Inspire Solutions, and the parent company, Inspire Investing, they've been at the forefront of pushing back against corporate wokeness, and it's pretty amazing. So we got all that as part of number 1, cultural landmines, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, I don't know if you're watching what's happening in Great Britain. I lived there for 3 years. It's a place where my life was changed, and I'll be honest with you, it's heartbreaking to watch it. And what's happening right now is not just social unrest, it is big brother government like you've never seen before. Freedom of speech is gone. Riots in the streets, mass migration, and the people have had it. And right now, good luck trying to find a story about it because it's being suppressed. We'll talk all about that as number 2 in the Triple Dipper. I'm calling it Crushing Britain. And then number 3, I'm going to get to it. My goal is to get to it. Didn't get to it yesterday. Monopoly money. Monopoly money. There has been a major court ruling that came out in the last few days that has perhaps changed the landscape of how we handle the internet. What are your internet searches going to be like right now? Well, we'll talk about it. Number 3, monopoly money. But let me move over to my opening monologue, the right side way. And this is going to tie right into that topic I had on the Dippers a minute ago about crushing Britain. But I tell you what, let me start by saying this. I remember once sitting in a chow hall on my fob in Baghdad, 2004, on a small battalion fob in central Baghdad during some incredibly difficult times. But we had also been achieving some great successes. And there was a TV that hung up in the corner, had a satellite dish outside. It was tuned in to CNN International. And it began reporting on our area of operations. So several of us leaned in to hear what they were saying. And it didn't match anything we knew to be the truth on the ground. I looked at the guy next to me and I said, are they sure they're talking about the same place? But look, it's no different now, maybe worse. I'm watching the news like many of you, and I'm bothered by the fact that I can tell when things are happening out there, but I can't find stories on them. Why is that? In this day of electronic information mediums and 24/7 news cycles, there should be no lack of information on virtually anything. And yet this morning I was resourcing the show and decided to do a dipper on the government of Great Britain, a place that I've lived and where my own life was changed. And the government of Great Britain right now is cracking down on its citizens like you've never seen. Not for crimes, by the way, but because of their thoughts and opinions. But good luck trying to find a story on it. It's out there, But in terms of actual news, the civil unrest and the Orwellian government actions against law-abiding citizens is just hiding in plain sight. You know it's there, but you can't see it. I can couple that with the information that we learned recently about big tech and its willingness to decide for you what is and is not considered information, misinformation, disinformation. And by merely altering its algorithms, the giant of Google can decide what will and will not be able to be searched. And voila, the world can remain dark on an issue. Okay, so we've all heard about the epic novel by George Orwell, 1984. It's a part of pop culture now. One of those writings which has now become bigger than, the book itself. There are nearly several, probably a half a dozen cliched phrases that we use every day that many people don't even realize came from the impactful novel 1984. The funny thing is, the book was written in 1949, at a time when the year 1984 seemed like the distant future, but we're now over 70 years past its publication, nearly 40 years past the date for which it was titled. But we're living in an age when the matters that were contemplated in the book don't seem that far away now. All of a sudden, Orwell's writings seem very prescient. And the phraseology from 1984 is embedded in our daily lexicon. It's not uncommon for somebody to say something like, big government is Orwellian, or that Big Brother is watching you, or to claim the thought police are afoot. But what about the concepts themselves? Not just the titles, but the actual concepts. About changing the way people are allowed to think, telling them what they're allowed to say, giving them clarity, government-inspired clarity, as to what is considered right and wrong. So in the novel 1984, the thought police are the secret police of the superstate that rules the dystopian world. The job of the thought police is to discover and to punish thought crime, personal and political thoughts unapproved by the regime. The thought police use criminal psychology and omnipresent surveillance via informers and telescreens and cameras and microphones to monitor the citizens and arrest all of those who committed thought crime in challenge to the status quo authority of the party and the regime of Big Brother. Sound far-fetched? Not really. Fiction? No. I mean, you know what they say. It is fiction, but sometimes reality is stranger than fiction. Sometimes fiction is also based in reality. Just a couple of years ago, don't forget this, just a couple of years ago in a congressional hearing right here in the United States, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas announced the creation of his new DHS Disinformation Governance Board. Remember that? What? Yeah. According to a story on Fox News, Mayorkas said a Disinformation Governance Board had recently been created. According to Secretary Mayorkas, quote, the goal is to bring the resources of DHS together to address this threat, adding that the department is focused on the spread of disinformation in minority communities. Okay, let's dissect that a bit. First of all, the Department of Homeland Security was forming a so-called Disinformation Board. That's not the CIA, the NSA, or any other intel agency whose mission involves countering threats from abroad. This is the Department of Homeland Security, meaning ostensibly that they would have been monitoring the communications, opinions, and reporting of domestic citizens and businesses right here in the United States. When did that become okay? Short answer, it's not. This was designed to become a policy-making legal arm of the Department of Homeland Security, likely with a whole staff of wonks and lawyers. We're told not what their authority would be. I mean, would they have the power of search and seizure? Would they have had the power of detainment or just to write white papers and submit them to federal agencies? Look, I'll be honest with you, I don't want these people anywhere near my First Amendment rights to freedom of speech. It is not the role of government to determine truth and to censor thought. It was only the outcry of conservatives that got the Orwellian effort called the Disinformation Governance Board shut down before it really got off the ground. But the mere fact that they were trying to do it ought to give you pause. And then there's Great Britain, our greatest ally. That nation is as much like us, sort of, with hot tea. But the British government recently passed legislation that makes it a hate crime to post, repost, or even discuss topics that it considers insightful or designed to malign or cause unrest. But who gets to decide? Who gets to say this word is okay, but that word is not? The government. And they have already, by their own admission, begun scouring social media and dedicating law enforcement assets to arresting people from their homes for daring to say something deemed by the government to be unacceptable. And riots are starting now because of it all. In Orwell's 1984, he had the concept of newspeak. Newspeak. It was the official language of the dystopian government. It was the acceptable words and phrases designed to promote what Big Brother called ingsoc, and ingsoc was the special Newspeak word for English socialism. Newspeak had A, B, and C categories in that book of vocabulary that were acceptable, designed to promote ingsoc. The A vocabulary was basic words for life, but they were somewhat dumbed down because, no thinking allowed. The B vocabulary was politically motivated, and it created new ways of identifying your approved behavior by combining nouns and verbs. Things like an approved person was called a good thinker. A C vocabulary was scientific, sort of, because science was actually subordinated to the agenda of the government. In the book 1984, all of Old Speak literature was translated into Newspeak, which ensured that it lost all of its old meaning and that only the goals of Big Brother could be promoted because Newspeak did not allow opposing thought. In 1984, history was rewritten because of Newspeak, but fragments of the literature of the past survived here and there, sort of imperfectly censored, and as long as one held on to its knowledge of what Old Speak was, it was still possible to read them. Look, that was a novel, 1984. But let me ask you this. Is it true, though, that even today, in the free world, the Western world, America, Great Britain, is it true that there are those who wish to confuse the public discourse right now? Here in life, real life, or to skew or to sway public opinion by offering half-truths and lies? Yes, there certainly are. Big Tech has done it, the government has done it, and we know now, too, that Big Tech and the government even colluded to do it together. And listen, the government is not well suited to set itself up as the harbinger of truth, not by a bit, not by a stretch, not for a single minute. Attempting to monitor the situation or the nation from within and govern and regulate and perhaps enforce the concepts that Big Brother may have deemed in their ivory tower wisdom to be truth that is allowed versus truth that is not allowed, well, that's where truth goes to die. And freedom of speech becomes a narrative that is then relegated to those dusty halls of an old school library, where only old speak can be found in the books. It's bureaucratic nightmares like this that caused Ronald Reagan to say once, quote, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States where men were free." So God bless England. God bless America. Let's watch out for that Newspeak. And that's a wrap for the Rightside Way. Yeah, it's crazy to watch. And, I'm so proud that we got that thing shut down with the Department of Homeland Security a couple years ago. But watch England right now. And by the way, you're probably only going to find it on Twitter. Unless you go to a news source that has it, you're going to have to go to Twitter to find something happening about England's censorship and the riots going on right now. It's amazing to watch. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower up here. All right, so text lines and phone lines are open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Text it or call it, same number for both, 833-68-RIGHT. A bunch of y'all chimed in on that one right away. I mean, my word, this is, wow, holy smokes. Let me just jump on in and see what people are saying. Jim from Grove Oak says, bravo, Colonel. God bless you and Elon. By the way, I hope those Haitian migrants lost their cookbook. Okay, I'm not sure how to go with that one, but thank you, Jim. Appreciate you. John from Huntsville says, Phil, awesome monologue. Also, I love the also. Also, did you hear that Microsoft says Iran is accelerating cyber activity meant to influence the U.S. elections? Did you also hear? He's got two alsos. You also hear there was a fiery plane crash in Brazil's Sao Paulo state that killed all 62 people. Yeah, in fact, that's an amazing story. I don't know any more than just what John said, but except that Big Rig and I were sitting here in the studio a minute ago, and up on the screen they actually showed the plane going down, and it was not like coasting in like you see plane crashes, like it's coming in careening and going down at an angle. It was just literally falling out of the sky, like straight down. It's a good size plane too. 62 people gone. Randy from Madison, Phil, what are your thoughts on the Ukrainian incursion into Kursk? I don't have any thoughts on that right now. I would need to look at it, Randy. I do know this. I don't want Russia to win, but I think we better start getting our act together in terms of what our support's supposed to mean. Like, can we please have somebody with a plan, some milestones, some kind of an idea of what the end state should mean? And we don't have that right now. But Ukraine has been putting the wood to Russia the entire time. Russia didn't expect this. David from Buc-ee's says, Phil, don't forget the other book, Animal Farm. Oh, yeah. He said it wasn't long, though, or before all the animals were created equal. Some were created more equal. Seems that's what the liberals are doing now. I would agree with that. John C. from Madison says, 1984 was required reading when I was in high school. Yeah, there's several things that were required reading back in the day that are not now, and I think folks are just missing out. Thomas from Athens says, the Disinformation Governance Board from DHS was canceled. I know, I said that. However, he says the DGB was chartered to exist under the Cyber Infrastructure Security Agency, which according to Elon Musk and others may be performing the DGB's functions. Well, that would be interesting, and I'd love to know. Anyway, John from Harvest, Phil, Orwell's book, 1984, is supposed to be a warning and not a how-to manual. What a great phrase. He said, we need more 1776 and less 1984. John continually wins the text lines. He just does.
He's a smart guy.
John, you need to start writing op-eds for Rightside Media. I'm just saying. Gary from Decatur. Headline News today announced that a woman in Great Britain was arrested for inciting riots and unrest in the country by posting misinformation on social media about the murders of young girls by immigrants. Yeah, that's the thing. And we're going to talk about that in detail in a few minutes. But mass migration has been a major cultural hot-button issue in Great Britain for the last really 6 to 8 years especially. I mean, they're facing some of what we're facing here. Our numbers are much higher, but we're also a much bigger country. Great Britain, the island nation of Great Britain is about the size of Oregon. It's not huge, landmass-wise. Population, I got to go back and look. Was it? It's in the millions, like 43 million. I can look and see. I don't recall now. But the reality is this: what they're facing is causing extreme unrest, and it's also very evident that a lot of them are Islamic background who refuse to assimilate, and they're setting up cultural enclaves, and then they're trying to invoke Sharia law, and then 3 little girls were stabbed to death, and the people had had enough. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, all that and a whole lot more. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. I mean it. This one, Alabama. Y'all, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gaston parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, so I'm going to jump into this first dipper, cultural landmines, and coming up top of the hour, unless the phones break again, we're going to have Paul Breyer on from Inspire Advisors, which is perfect because two of the stories that I've got today actually have his company quoted as pushing the effort to get rid of corporate wokeness. Why? Because it crushes brand identity. And it crushes the ability for investors to see a return on their investment in corporate shares. I mean, it's like, know your audience. And I get it. Sometimes, probably, I'm trying to pick a brand. I don't know, Starbucks or something. They can probably get away with being, more progressive or whatever. They've kind of birthed themselves out of the whole Seattle mindset, and they're trendy, and I get that. But Harley Davidson? I mean, for the love. Bud Light? Anyway, I'm going to tell you about some of this stuff here in a moment, but I will take a couple more text messages real quick before I do that. Dustin from Hillsborough says, is it just me or what just happened with the Democrat candidate selection a mirror of the book Animal Farm? Ooh, I had not thought of that. Dustin, that's like perfect. I mean, I feel a new monologue coming up. That's really good. Scott from Athens, talking about Great Britain, says Britain is toast. Just a matter of how toasty. At this point, legal deportations will be nasty. We have our own problem with it that'd be better undone faster or more like ill. Anyway, I'm not sure what you're trying to say there because you're voice texting or something, but it didn't come through. But the bottom line is, I get it. Yep, Britain's got troubles right now. I love that country. I love that nation. Allie from Athens, Colonel Williams, I realized that we were not on the same fob in 2004, but we had the same experience. Standing in line to get chow, watching the news, and it was supposedly talking about us and wondering what we had missed. It was disturbing then, disturbing now. God help Great Britain. Thank you, Allie, and thanks again for your service to the troops. I did these dippers, these text messages because one of them is touching on the dipper, and I'll get to it momentarily. Jimmy from Delrose, Tennessee. Jimmy sent me something, and I'm not going to have a chance to read your article, Jimmy, but thanks for texting in. Mike from Arab says, haven't been on something in over 10 years, hate spending the money. We spend it on the house and just enjoy being home. Vacation. He hasn't been on vacation in 10 years. Okay. I got you, Mike. Now listen, I kind of worked my way through those to get to this one. Dave from Madison. This goes straight to my first dipper. It says Delta Airlines DEI officer says the phrase, you ready for this? Ladies and gentlemen, is offensive. You heard it. So, quote, we're beginning to take a hard look at things like our gatehouse announcements, where we welcome ladies and gentlemen. Listen, I retweeted that whole article earlier today. Dave, great catch. Thank you very much. Reminded me I forgot to bring that article into my dipper prep, but I saw it just before lunch and I retweeted it out. It's absolutely asinine. So Delta Airlines, the same organization that stood in the way or tried to stand in the way of voter ID in Georgia and has made all kinds of woke statements, has a DEI officer who has, I guess, been given the authority to make sure that Delta, when it welcomes people to its gates now, does not say ladies and gentlemen because that is not inclusive enough. Well, when that's all there are, you can say ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. But what they're really saying is, there's so many genders that we don't want to forget one, so we're just going to not say it. What are they going to say? People. But then what happens to the furries? I don't know. This kind of stuff right here does nothing for brand identity. It does nothing for corporate bottom lines. Now, I will say this. There's a pushback. As these cultural landmines are out there, and for some reason, corporate boardrooms keep, self-inflicting wounds upon themselves as they walk through clearly marked landmine areas. You got companies like Camping World that are pushing back. I don't know if you've seen this or not. Love this story. Camping World Story on Fox News, Dateline today. In San Joaquin County, California supervisor praises the RV retailer Camping World after its Old Glory drama. So California's San Joaquin County has got some fans and some not fans of the giant American flag that Camping World is known for. If you've ever seen a Camping World, retail site, they fly a giant American flag. It's a very pro-America business. And they have been told in California to take it down. Take it down. They said it was a hazard because it was too close to the road. What if something happened? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. You know what it really is? If it was any other, if it was a gay pride flag, they wouldn't say boo. Nada. But the owner, they first were ordered to take it down, and apparently the local manager was just unsure of himself, took it down and reached out to corporate asking what he should do, and corporate ordered him to put it back up. Yeah. So the bottom line is, at Camping World, they ain't playing. That flag stays in place. And they are not going to go down the road of being told they have to either kowtow or just be woke themselves. And I love that. In fact, what's really neat is the Camping World CEO, Marcus Lemons. He actually had the flag raised on Monday, the days before any permitting process was even complete. He just went ahead and said, put that flag back up. He's actually a first-generation American, immigrated to the U.S. himself from Lebanon. And he's a staunch defender of the flag, has been involved in all kinds of other standoffs around the country. He does not play. And I'm glad. And that kind of thing endears him and his company to America in general, I believe. Now, there's these cultural landmines, though. What are they doing to our brands? What are they doing to things that we love? Like, for instance, I've got an article here from Fox Business. It talks about a new book by Charlie Gasparino. You may have seen him. He does Fox Business, commentating about economic issues and investing shares, and he's talking about things that have gone on that are just so obvious in his new book. His new book's called Go Woke, Go Broke: The Inside Story of the Radicalization of Corporate America. Talks about how activists are pulling companies away from their original purposes and into ideological agendas. All right, so you've got a situation here where he points out there was a story about at Goldman Sachs. Someone suggested that they needed to pull Chick-fil-A out of their investment portfolios. Why? Well, because they got views on same-sex marriage, and there was even a question about whether they should eat Chick-fil-A in the boardroom. And it just, you look at it and go, have you gotten that far down the road? But then you have the lessons learned, like Dylan Mulvaney and Bud Light, and the lady who did that. What was her name? Alyssa Heinerscheid, the first woman to manage the marketing of the nation's most popular beer. Also the last woman to manage the marketing of the nation's most popular beer, because it's not the nation's most popular beer anymore. She was put on involuntary leave when she decided that having a transgender activist be the spokesperson for their brand, what would she say it was going to be? It would make it less fratty and more inclusive. Those were her words. Yeah, how'd that work out for you? You're now like third in line. You were the number one beer in America. Billions of dollars in beer. How many things started with, here, hold my beer, and it was a Bud Light? Not anymore. All right. Sometimes things get forced on a corporation, and I know that. And then they have to be bolstered and encouraged to take a stand. Story came out of Daily Signal 2 days ago. This is amazing. So think about this. You're going to the store, and you're right here in Red State, Alabama, and suddenly you look down and realize that on the shelf in the Costco or the Walmart or the Kroger or the Albertsons Foods or whatever store you're used to, you see I can't even say it now. Mifepristone. There it is. Mifepristone, the abortion pill. Why would that be there? Well, it might not be in Alabama because of the law, but in some states, Walmart, Costco, Kroger, and all are being compelled to put it on their shelves. And they're having to make a decision. Do we resist or do we not? It's sort of a much hairier version of the take down your flag camping world. It says here in this particular article in Daily Signal that what happened was in New York City, their comptroller, who controls all of their retirement pension plans for the city of New York City, wrote a letter to these major retailers, Costco, Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, and McKesson, and wrote them a letter and said that if they did not start selling mifepristone, that he was going to dump all $1.3 billion in shares out of the portfolios that were carried by the city of New York City's retirement plans. That is corporate extortion. Well, coming up right behind it, though, was a group of 38 financial managers who all came and just hit right back. And they said, don't do it. Don't do it. Stand your ground. We've got your back. We manage over $100 billion in assets. One of those companies was Inspire Investing, the same company that Inspire Solutions is a part of that you're going to hear in a little while from Paul Breyer. Inspire Solutions, Guidestone, Morgan Stanley, Truist, Bauer Research, Transform, and a bunch of others all got together and said, don't do it. Maximizing shareholder value, they wrote, requires Costco to avoid politicizing its services and to continue to do what it's always done best, is provide excellent groceries and retail goods to families. The guy named Robert Netzley, who's the CEO of Inspire, he said there is simply no question that Costco's decision to sell abortion drugs would automatically risk its brand reputation. Entering the abortion drug marketplace is an inescapably political decision. This would be like Bud Light, Disney, and Target. All three have taken affirmative stances on controversial issues, and they have yet to recover from the backlash. So here's the thing. These cultural landmines exist, all right? This is just back to me wrapping this piece up here. These cultural landmines exist. Do not forget the fact that when someone says they are about certain products and services, that unless they've decided to go down that road openly, that by tainting their brand with cultural landmines, all they do is diminish the value of their goods and services. You have no reason, Delta Airlines, to do what you just did about saying, ladies and gentlemen. You have no reason, Bud Light, to do what you did regarding Dylan Mulvaney. You have no reason, Goldman Sachs, to decide you can't eat Chick-fil-A in the boardroom. And you have no reason, New York City, to try and force a corporation to carry something that is otherwise controversial just because you say so. These cultural landmines exist, though, and they absolutely affect the bottom line. When we get back from this break, we're going to go down the road that I never thought I'd have to go down. I thought if there was ever a product that would not go bad, it would be this one. And then if you remember what happened with Bud Light, you got to go, well, maybe they can all go. And when I tell you about the next one, it's going to curl your hair. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. All right, these cultural landmines we're talking about, where corporate America just goes completely bonkers woke, like out there, like Delta Airlines saying we can no longer say ladies and gentlemen because that's not inclusive enough. That's all there is. Well, they don't believe that, apparently. Well, it affects brand identity. It affects, basically corporate legacy, and it certainly affects bottom line. Here's the other thing that's happening. Part of what's happening is they've lost their way on the order of things. What do I mean by that? They've lost their way on the order of things by assuming that they, as corporate America, are the ones who are best suited to set public policy. And that is not their role. Now, it is not uncommon for a business to lobby government to affect public policy, but corporations are not supposed to be setting public policy in and of themselves. Do you remember back in 2015, I think it was, back when we used to actually question the idea of transgender bathrooms? Remember that? In 2015, Target came out and told everybody that it was going to start letting anyone use any restroom and no questions asked. And there was an outcry. They were doing that not by going through the legislative process and trying to get state legislatures to allow things under state law. They were deciding to set public policy as a corporation, and that is not their role. But you see things happening. It's not always corporations now. I'm focusing mostly on corporations, but I got to point out that Duke Medical Center, which has a great reputation, and oh, by the way, lots of corporations want to do business with Duke until they find out things like this one. Story on July 11th. Teaching critical race theory at Duke Medical School, approved medical slide decks that are being used to train students and faculty are designed to, quote, catalyze anti-racist practice through education by teaching things like white supremacy is the cultural identity that white people and the ideas, thoughts, beliefs, and actions of white people are superior to people of color. Well, that's white supremacy, certainly. But then they're saying that, and you can identify it by seeing things like people who arrive at work on time and well-dressed. Those are aspects of white supremacy culture. I guess they're saying that black people don't know how to arrive on time. What an insult. But if you think your corporations are going to want to do business with Duke, think again. But y'all, look, I go back to the idea of your corporate branding. Know your audience. And recognize that you, as a corporation, your job is not to set public policy. And could somebody please talk to Harley Davidson? The brand that I never thought I would ever see go down this road. Like, right up there with Bud Light. If you had to pick a few safe American brands that you're like, that'll never happen, to me it was going to be the rough and tumble kind of crusty image of Harley Davidson and the free spirit and the idea of the, rolling across the great American plains on a two-wheeler and, just riding. And how many times have you seen the stereotypical images of the biker gangs? And, there's nothing about them that's soft or diverse or equitable. But there is now at Harley Davidson, and it's not going well. Harley Davidson, New York Post, a few weeks ago, Harley Davidson became the latest major brand to face backlash over its DEI initiatives. It's not a little bit, by the way. It's not like a little bit. Like they've done things like they're a platinum founding member of the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce in Wisconsin, okay, and they openly oppose banning transgender sex changes for children. Really? Yes. And then you got to look at, they do things like at a recent event, they sponsored an LGBTQ event that had a, quote, rage room and also had a story time for children with drag queens. They also said that the company, Harley Davidson, celebrated in its legal department by taking a woke 21-day racial equity and literacy challenge to read books like the 1619 Project and works of Ibram X. Kendi. This is not going well with the consumer. Story on Fox News. Biker backlash at Sturgis, the biker rally that is just legendary, and Harley used to be the dominant factor. Nobody wanted to hang out at the Harley booth. Harleys are selling for less than they used to. And what we're seeing right now is this culture of wokeness, these cultural landmines, are actually affecting the corporate culture to the point that shareholders are pushing back. Coming up next, Paul Breyer, Inspire Solutions. We'll talk to him about it. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2 on this beautiful hot Friday. And we've spent some time now in Dipper number 1 talking about cultural landmines. And this, listen, having served in a war zone, when a minefield is marked, it's almost like there is some form of contributory negligence on the part of the person who ignores the sign and walks into it anyway. Well, we're watching that constantly in corporate America these days, as one after the other, Harley Davidson, Bud Light, and they make decisions. You look at it and go, you have lost your way and you wandered into a cultural landmine. Somebody who knows this whole situation better than me, who makes a living just dealing with this very issue, is Paul Breyer. And we had Paul coming on the other day to talk about the upheaval in the market, and then lo and behold, our phone system went down. But I thought when I put this segment together, I thought, oh, here's a redo. So this is perfect. So this wound up being better because his company has actually been contributing to the pushback on this. Paul Breyer, by the way, is with degrees from Auburn University and Florida Institute of Technology. He's actually a qualified aerospace engineer, but he is also an independent financial advisor with Inspire Advisors. On the line right now. Paul Breyer, how you doing?
I am doing good. How are you doing, Phil?
I'm good, man. We got it to work this time. Whoop, whoop.
Excellent. Yeah, you ready to go woke?
No. But I tell you what, though, I watch the world we're in, and when I see things like Harley Davidson losing their way, I think, what in the world is going on right now?
I don't understand it either. It's really impossible to understand why they do it, because when you think of it from just a basic stewardship of your corporation and shareholder value, trying to maximize shareholder value, why are you doing it? It makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. And the thing that I've enjoyed, though, is that while we are seeing some corporations, like most recently there was a major deal with Camping World refusing to take down its flag, we are seeing some corporations pushing back against wokeness. But what's interesting, too, is to watch shareholders finally push back against the boardroom. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of aspects to that. One is shareholders that own stocks directly. Yes, you can absolutely exercise your voting power, and you should do that. You get those voting your share mailers in the mail, and, if you're like me, you kind of look at them and go, I don't know who to vote for. But, maybe it's time to look at it a little more closely, see who they're trying to put on the board, dig into their backgrounds a little bit more, and exercise some due diligence there. Another way is to use or leverage companies that you invest with and ask them, on your behalf to lobby for less wokeism in corporate America. They absolutely have power to do that. One of the things that Inspire Advisors or Inspire Investing is do directly is engaging some of these proxy services, like Institutional Shareholder Services and Glass Lewis. You may not have heard their names before. I didn't know who they were a few months ago, but they really have a monopoly about over 98% of all shares owned by investors, and they vote those for you. And they're not voting them probably the way you want to.
Yeah.
So if we leave it up to them, you're going to get what you get.
Well, I saw most recently that, and I quoted earlier in the show, your company actually pushed back against the city of New York City's comptroller, which was trying to force the use of the abortion pill or sale of the abortion pill in companies like Costco and Walmart and others, one of 38 companies that banded together. So there are some conservative investing companies out there that are taking a stand on behalf of their portfolio management. Am I right?
You are absolutely right, and you don't hear about them. You hear about all the bad actors, but there are plenty of companies that are conservative in their approach, more than you think, and they are pushing back. You can ignore it for a while and go, "Oh, this is going to go away on its own," but it's just gotten out of control. So it's time to fight back.
So how does an individual who just has their own portfolio, maybe they're not part of a massive plan, they can't control how it's invested, like, a state retirement plan or something like that. If they have their own portfolio, how do they even gut check this stuff and make sure they're not toting around investments in something that doesn't stand for what they believe in?
Yeah, great question. One of the ways is find out what you're invested in. Put your dollars where your heart is. Something that we're fond of and we work with every day is biblically responsible investing. So what is that? That's aligning your investments with biblical principles. So we don't support abortion. We don't support LGBT activism, human trafficking. The list goes on. So you can absolutely take a look at your portfolio. I'll give you a website to do that, actually. It's inspireinsight.com. Take a look, put in your favorite ticker or mutual fund. It'll bring up a list of everything that mutual fund or stock is invested in that might be detrimental and not aligned with your values. They'll even give you links to where they found it. So it's attributable. You can find actual information about where they found what they're doing.
No, that's cool.
So that's number one.
Okay, all right. Number one, what else?
You're a consumer too, right? So sometimes you might want to do boycotts of products like your favorite light beer.
Like Bud Light. Yeah. I'll just go ahead and say it for you, Bud Light.
Or another way, if you don't do outright boycotts, is to encourage companies that sell multiple products to sell more of what you want them to sell and not encourage them to sell other things. There's companies that sell anything from abortion drugs to baby shampoo. Which one? I think I'm going to buy the baby shampoo.
Well, I look at this and I can't help but wonder. I mean, so we've been in what I would consider almost to be like a decade of corporate activism, and it's really exacerbated in the last, under the Biden administration, in my opinion, it's gotten rampant because they felt so empowered, and we're really even being pushed for DEI and all of it. But let me ask you this. Are you seeing a trend still towards wokeness, or are you seeing a trend away from it now? Has there been enough of a pushback to begin changing the bell curve?
I think it's turning, Phil. I really do. I see it happening. When you look at corporations and they stood up all these different DEI departments, I call it the latest HR fashion drug, when they start up that DEI program.
Right.
It's not working. They figured this out now, and they're starting to dismantle them. They're spending millions on these departments that really don't add any shareholder value, and it's not a competitive advantage for hiring or anything else.
Well, I look at it and think that surely to goodness, sooner or later, there's going to be a lawsuit. I mean, right? You're allowed to have, shareholders are allowed to file suit in some form of a derivative action against their actual, loss of share value. Because there's decisions being made that are not in the best interest of the company. And there's got to be a trend towards that coming right now. I can't imagine that some of these like Harley Davidson and others are going to be able to stay engaged in the woke path they've been on and not face true litigation on behalf of, massive numbers of shareholders.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is some legal recourse that's going to happen, but I also think that we as Christians have to, engage them compassionately and talk to them about it. Get into the boardroom, start engaging with folks about, okay, do you really know what's going on in your company? And sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a large company, they may be very surprised to see what's going on.
No, it's a great point. Well, I guess the thing I heard from you the most, though, is consumer engagement. Consumer/shareholder engagement is okay. I mean, you can actually, and I would say even at the grassroots level, you can walk into your favorite grocery store and ask for the manager and ask them to please carry more of a product. You can do it even at the local level, I would imagine.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. Your dollars speak loudly and clearly.
Well, Paul, we appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for your patience on the phones the other day and for making time for us again today. It was actually even a better fit today, I think, than it was before. So thanks very much.
You are most welcome. Thank you, Phil.
All right, talk to you soon. All right, well, listen, here's the bottom line, y'all. These cultural landmines, if you are a consumer, and Paul has mentioned it, if you are a consumer, you obviously have the power of the purse. And you may think, well, I'm just one. Look what happened to Bud Light. That was 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, and it kept on going to the point that it cascaded. You may be the shareholder, and you get the thing in the mail that says, agree, or if you don't answer, then you will have agreed to give your proxy vote over. You can choose not to do that. In fact, you may find out there's an effort by a conservative, this has happened, a conservative organization to gather up proxies to go and fight the issue. In fact, I didn't even get to it with Paul because we ran out of time, but there's an actual article put out by his company, Inspire, that says that there was a multi-pronged engagement action to go after proxy voting and to obtain the necessary signatures to help influence the votes. And that needs to happen. And then the other thing is, take it right down to the grassroots. Don't think that you're just one cog in a huge wheel. If you go to your local Walmart or Costco or wherever else and you see something that bothers you or something that is missing, tell the manager, there's a product I wish you'd put on the list. How do I report that? And they'll probably tell you, oh, we have a consumer hotline for that. And listen, you may think it doesn't matter. You start a Facebook trend, an X trend, and you start telling people, I've told my manager this, and he says that they listen as long as they get X number of responses. I say, go for it, man. You would be amazed. I mean, if consumer shareholder experience means nothing, then we're lost. But I think it means a lot, and it's worth it because these cultural landmines are destroying great brands like Harley Davidson. All right, we're taking a break right now. We'll come right back. We're going to switch dippers here on Friday afternoon. We're going to start talking about our brethren and sisterin overseas, right across the pond, Great Britain, what is happening as they are crushing Britain. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Man, saving the world one soundbite at a time. Throwing truth bombs everywhere I go. Putting all the truth out there you can put on a bumper sticker. All right, I'm going to number 2 of the Triple Dipper. It's a Friday, and I'm making the call. It is time to talk about crushing Britain. And no, I don't mean like I want to go crush Britain. I'm beside myself over what is happening to Great Britain. Listen, I lived there 3 years. It was an amazing time in my life. I was a knothead kid. I was one of those kids, right? I was the one that mom didn't know what to do with me. And I went to go live with Dad. Where was Dad? Well, Dad was in the Army station in London, England. Go figure. I like to say that God gave me a 3-year timeout, and I needed it. I was a messed up kid. But this is 7th, 8th, 9th grade, right? So I have very vivid memories of living there. Went to an American school at London Central High School, High Wycombe Air Force Base. But I lived out on the economy, so, it's not like I was just inside the base the entire time. I actually lived on the British economy, and we had a house in a place called Tyler's Green in Buckinghamshire. I loved living there. That is also, by the way, where I accepted Christ. So it was not just a 3-year timeout to get me away from things that I was really screwing up with, but it actually was the life-changing place. It's still a bucket list for me to go back there. We moved back to the States when I was going into my sophomore year of high school for Grissom High School in Huntsville. But those 3 years, some of the best years of my life. There was a lot of formative stuff in those years. There's a lot of life-changing stuff in those years. There's a lot of life-giving stuff in those years, and I will never forget being able to live there, knowing full well that this is a place that was so life-changing for me. To watch what is happening right now in Britain is just, it's second only to if I were seeing it happen in the United States. It is just of an epic scale right now what is happening. And the people of Great Britain, wonderful people, salt of the earth. They're just like mainstream America just with hot tea, right? They are rocks. Listen, the bottom line is this. The liberal woke agenda that we have here, at the very least, constantly has to butt itself up against our U.S. Constitution. Do they have rights in Great Britain? Yes. But they do not have the same level of protection that we have here in the United States. At the very least, what we're seeing is that when there's an encroachment upon our freedom of speech or our freedom of religion, our freedom or rights to assemble, all these things that we consider to be rights under our Constitution, we have the ability to fight back, and the greatest weapon we have is that Constitution. They don't have that in England. They have rights which are embedded within their laws, but most of theirs can be amended and abridged and deemed otherwise, not functional for the moment. And they're feeling it right now. Now, I'm going to set the stage for this. Great Britain has been in a mass migration wave now for over a decade. And it is not sitting well with the general populace. Gone are the days when you could say that you could go to London and expect that. It's a cosmopolitan city. I get that. I've been to New York City. I lived in London. I get the fact that it's a crossroads of the world. It's different when you say crossroads of the world as in the people that come and go. But when you have enclaves that set up and then decide to remain separate, but then tear down what they came to be a part of intentionally, it creates unrest. And then you add to that wokeness and an abridgment of basic civil liberties, and you start getting a recipe for disaster. And when people feel like they've been pushed back, not allowed to speak, had their message suppressed on search engines and on main media and on state-owned law enforcement or state-run law enforcement, when they feel like they have no rights and they can walk out on the street, and what we're seeing more often than not right now in Great Britain is a abridgment of speech, an invasion of privacy, and the fact that there is a loss of cultural identity that they're now pushing back on in the streets. How many of y'all are hearing about riots in England? Oh, you're not? Guess what? The media's not reporting it. You go on, here's the best place to find it. Go to Twitter, X, one of the only bastions of free thought right now in the world that is, generally speaking, able to be reached everywhere in the world, and do a hashtag of England riots. See what you get. It's epic scale. And the Muslim side of the riots are not being arrested at near the rate of the British citizens. Bill Williams, Rightside Radio. More of that. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, I'm talking about Alabama. Y'all, this show goes way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, a little while ago you heard Paul Breyer call in, which is cool because he's actually one of our advertisers, and which is not why he was on. He was on because the topic was his topic. It was perfect. But you need to make sure you understand what they do. I mean, so you are the kind of audience, I know this audience. I know who you are. You're amazing people who are willing to take stands for what you believe in. That you're right side ruffians. You're also, a lot of you are doing what you can to set aside for your retirement or a plan for, your investments or whatever else, and you're doing what you can to find those things you can invest in that have a good return. And lo and behold, you may be shocked to find out that once in a while there's something in your portfolio totally accidentally, and you realize you've invested in something that supports abortion or pornography or human trafficking or whatever. It happens all the time. Well, Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors, they are indeed specialists in what is known as biblically responsible investing, or BRI. They can help you. They'll sit down with you for free, in person. Sit down with you, look at what you got in your portfolio, give you a free report that tells you whether or not you've got some wokeness in your portfolio without even knowing it. And they can also give you some biblically aligned alternatives. But this meeting is free. There's no fuss, no muss, no upsell. It's worth checking them out. So if you want to check them out, absolutely go to their website. That's www.moneypatternwealth.com, moneypatternwealth.com, or just go to our website, rightsidemedia.org. Click on the Rightside Radio tab that has sponsors, and bam, go right to their logo, takes you right to their website. Inspire Advisors, so cool. Y'all, I'm telling you, it's conservative, it's godly, it's balanced, it's financial freedom is what it is. Inspire Advisors, do check them out. And thank you, Paul, for being on today. All right, so I'm back on this number 2 of the Triple Dipper, crushing Britain. It just bugs the crap out of me, y'all. It just does, because second only to, my own country, I have a soft spot for Great Britain. I lived there for 3 years. My life was changed there. I make no bones about the fact that I believe that Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except by him. And I discovered that living in England. And yet England is being crushed right now from within. Now, I told you, and I'm going to get in some audio clips here in a minute. Big Rig, I'll call audio 1 momentarily. But I told you, I guess about a month or so ago, maybe a couple months, one of the things that's happening, just to set the stage for this Orwellian system they got going on, is that the mayor of London came up with something he calls the ULEZ. The citizens hate this. But the ultra-low emission zone. The ultra-low emission zones mean, at first it started out in certain parts of London. To curb, carbon in the air, they were mandating that you had to drive certain kinds of cars in that part of town. And if you did not, that they would fine you. Well, how do they possibly police that? They put up security cameras everywhere, using artificial intelligence that identifies cars, snaps a picture of the car tag, and sends you a ticket in the mail for driving in the ULEZ without what is deemed to be an appropriate low-emission vehicle. How Orwellian is that? Here you are. These are the roads paid for with your tax dollars. By the way, if you drive here in an unapproved car, we'll charge you money. Not a little bit, like $15 a day. So this goes on and on and on. So can you imagine? Basically, your lunch money's gone because you got no choice but to go to work that way. You can't afford a new car because all the cars that are approved are the newer models. And you're stuck having to drive your old car to work. And so there's entire websites that are out there right now that are coaching people how to get around the ULEZ cameras. So they expanded it. And they expanded it more. And now the mayor of London made it all of London. It's like all of New York City. It's huge. So now driving in London, people are being ticketed left and right. So now you got these folks that call themselves Blade Runners. This is really kind of funny. Maybe I shouldn't laugh because I'm encouraging civil disobedience that has a touch of violence with it. But here's the bottom line. These folks that call themselves Blade Runners, they're going out now at night and they're tearing down cameras, they're cutting cords, And they're also putting out websites that tell people how to get around them. And even putting out websites that coach people how to dismantle them. I mean, this is like the citizenry is pushing back. There are thousands, y'all, thousands of these cameras. London is now blanketed with cameras just to ticket people for driving an unapproved vehicle. One guy going by the pseudonym of Ben McMillan, which is, anyway, he told the Daily Express newspaper that these are not young people or gangs of activists. He said it's mostly people in their 40s and pensioners. He said, I get old ladies asking me how to destroy cameras. They're going around London with garden shears in their car. There's normal people who work normal jobs. They have businesses and families. And they're doing what they can to take back their community. In June of 2023, this article I've got here from UK News on Yahoo had a video detailing how to remove ULEZ cameras to resist the globalists. It went viral on Twitter and others, and in one clip it showed a man who claimed to have taken down several cameras, instructing other ones how to do it under a minute so you can get away, saying, "This is our country, we're taking it back." Well, that's the sentiment on the street, but that's also what they're facing. There is an entire new version of governance going on right now that sees the people as secondary. It's almost despotic at this point. In a beautiful country with a rich history like Great Britain, you're seeing people that are being told what car they're allowed to drive. Well, it got a little worse here recently. Late last year, the British government passed a law designed to, resist disinformation online. Oh, gee, now what? Well, what they're saying now is you need to think before you post because you might get arrested. Big Rig, you got audio clip number 1? All right, let me just I'll tell you what I'm going to do. This happened just the other day. Story here on gnews.org, which is a British news outlet. The Crown Prosecution Service for England and Wales. So the Crown Prosecution Service issued a Orwellian threat, it says, to prosecute people for their social media posts. This just happened. I saw it. It says, think before you post. And then it goes on to say that they take violence very seriously and that you could face consequences for what you put on your social media. And then it says, prosecuted for posting material online which incites violence or hatred, which, by the way, they're the ones who decide what that is. But then they say you can also be prosecuted for even sharing it. Oh, okay. Listen to this actual Crown Prosecution Service statement, audio clip. Go ahead and play it.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification arrests and so forth. So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them.
Let me tell you what's happened most recently. In a shocking event, 3 young girls below the age of 10 were at their dance school. And an immigrant came in and stabbed all 3 of them, killed all 3 little girls. The word went viral on social media. The police were withholding the name of the perpetrator. But it went viral on social media, the belief that he was an immigrant. That has caused civil unrest like you would not believe. What's happened then next is people were posting on their social media, I heard he's a migrant. That was deemed offensive. The fact that people are posting, we believe a migrant is the one who did this, is what has been deemed. There are people who have been arrested for posting their understanding that a migrant killed 3 little girls, which is causing people to go to the streets. No one said, go riot in the streets because it's migrants and we don't like migrants. They're just saying things about the fact that a crime was perpetrated on 3 little girls. People are going to the streets over it. And so now the people who posted on social media, one lady was arrested most recently for the very reason that I just cited. And this is happening in England right now. Elon Musk has taken a stand on this, by the way. Elon Musk recently came out and called for free speech to be allowed back in England because it's not. Big Rig, better take a break. Tell you what, let's go ahead and move towards the break right now. But when we get back, I'll tell you about Elon Musk. I'll tell you what he's facing. And then I'll tell you what you and I as Americans could face if we went to England right now and had a social media post that he deemed inappropriate. It's unbelievable. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, they're just crushing Britain. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. Back on number 2 of the Triple Dipper, talking about crushing Britain. And by the way, let me just say this. This could be us if we let it go. This could be us if we don't take our constitutional rights more seriously. If we do not have a nation of laws, a willingness of the people to stand for what is already theirs, meaning our civil liberties, then what I'm describing to you about what's happening in Great Britain will be us in 10 years. Now, having said that, what about us over there? Well, you heard a moment ago as an official from the Crown, what do they call it? The Crown Public Prosecution Service. Yeah, Crown Prosecution Service in England. Talking in that little mealy-mouthed voice, just makes you want to punch him. That little mealy-mouthed voice, just how we have waves of law enforcement that is scouring social media to find these people, and we will go out and make identity arrests. What that basically saying is they're checking your social media. If they don't like what they see and they think it could be in some way insightful. And right now, insightful is just talking about immigrants murdering kids. Why is that not inflammatory? Why are they more worried about that than they are about, what actually happened? But then the question becomes, it's a bucket list item for me. I want to go back and see the place where I accepted Christ. I want to go back and walk the streets, of the place where I used to live. I love London. London's awesome. I'm determined to go back there and spend time. You can imagine what my social media looks like. So what happens, Big Rig? I'm going to call for audio number 2, but what happens if you go to England and you're a foreign citizen, an American, and maybe there's things on your social media that they don't like? Well, the chief of police, I believe he is in London, had something to say about that. The Met police chief played it for me, man.
We will throw the full force of the law at people. And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Talk to me about that, because we have seen some high-profile figures whipping up the hatred. You talked about it in there with the officers, in fact, about this being added to by online commentary. I mean, I'm even thinking of the likes of Elon Musk getting involved. What are you considering when it comes to dealing with people who are whipping up this kind of behaviour from behind a keyboard, maybe in a different country?
Being a keyboard warrior does not make you safe from the law. You can be guilty of offences of incitement, of stirring up racial hatred. There are numerous terrorist offences regarding the sort of publishing of material. All of those offences are in play if people are provoking hatred and violence on the streets, and we will come after those individuals just as we will physically confront on the streets the thugs and the obs who are causing the problems for communities.
All right, play that, if you don't mind. Big Ray, I want to do this. Go back and play the very beginning of it again, too. That's the most important part. Go ahead and play it.
We will throw the full force of the law at people.
Yeah.
And whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, we will come after you.
Stop.
Because we have seen
You're looking at the possibility that you go to England and you're an American, and while you're there, you post something and say, I was shocked by what I saw, and it appears that there are, these things happening on the street that I don't like, or I don't like the ULEZ, and I think I might go walk in solidarity with some of the protesters. And next thing you know, you're arrested and extradited. And that is exactly what the Metro Police Chief is saying right there, that even if it's online and you're a visitor in our country, you are not immune from the law. Now listen, I'm going to go ahead and point out that the First Amendment does not allow you to walk into a crowded theater and shout fire, all right? You're putting people at risk. That's not what we're talking about, because this is not that. This is not a question of someone literally got on there and said, let's kill all the immigrants. That's not what we're talking about. In fact, article I've got here from the Financial Times, The UK riots erupted a week ago, this Dateline the 6th, so what, 3 days ago. UK riots erupted a week ago in the wake of the murder of 3 young girls in Southport, a town north of Liverpool. They keep calling it far-right violence. It's not. It's citizens who are just sick of it. Far-right violence and disruption, they say, initially sparked in response to the stabbings at a dance class, has spread to cities and towns across the country, led to more than 400 arrests. And it says that the problem was misinformation about the identity the teenager held. What does that mean? It was posts on social media where people were saying, I heard that he was a Muslim immigrant who just got off the boat recently. And they're saying that that statement enough was designed to incite violence. That is called an opinion of a topic of social concern. Had they said, let's take to the streets and find them and burn down their houses, that'd be a whole different game. That's not this. And yet, we're looking right now in the UK's new Online Safety Act. They're literally cracking down on people. Like one particular man was just arrested for things that he had posted on his Facebook page. Y'all, I'm just telling you, this is beyond Orwellian. Elon Musk has come out and made a stand against this. Elon Musk has taken heat from the British government right now. The British government, get this, and I may wind up going through the break on this. The UK government has its new disinformation unit. Oh, wait a minute. Do you remember that the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, was trying to form a disinformation department? And we got it put down? Well, in England, they've got it. The UK government's disinformation unit, it says, according to the Financial Times, has been compiling examples of posts it believes are, quote, spreading disinformation and inciting violence. That's 2 different things. Spreading disinformation and inciting violence. Ask yourself, who gets to decide what is considered disinformation? Apparently the same people that are enforcing it. Several companies like Google, Meta, and TikTok have been quick to respond by scrutinizing and removing flagged posts. But X, Twitter, has been less responsive and has kept concerning content up. Well, Elon Musk has called himself a free speech absolutist. He recently posted just about 3 hours ago, and Elon Musk, support freedom of speech in the UK. I mean, he's not playing. He's pushing back on it. And what we're hearing right now is that this is not over. And the riots in the street, this could be a rough weekend in England. But are you really hearing about it much? No, because part of the problem is the other piece of this, the suppression of the stories in order to suit the narrative. We'll do more of that when we get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Welcome to hour number 3 on this super hot Friday. We're going to take you all the way to go home time, get you into the weekends. I hope you guys got great plans for the weekend, and it does appear the weather is going to be cooperative. So if you got outdoor activities, shouldn't be a problem, except that it's freaking hot. So just make sure you drink lots of water. I'm in this section of Crushing Britain, and I'll reiterate again, golly, I take no joy in this whatsoever. This is like that other great country that I love almost as much as I love my own. It's a bucket list for me to go back there, live there for 3 years. I accepted Christ living in London. This is a place that is near and dear to my heart, all right? That being said, it is a mess right now. The government has become totalitarian in too many ways, invasive. I mean, when you've got a mayor of London, which is like saying the mayor of New York City, when you've got a mayor of a major metropolitan city in the world who's allowed to put up cameras and fine you for not having a car that he approves of. What is happening? And there's not just a camera, we're talking thousands of what they call ULEZ cameras. When you've got law enforcement saying that we're dedicating massive law enforcement resources to scouring social media to find people that we deem to have put inappropriate disinformation on their social media, we will come to your house and arrest you. And foreigners, if you're here, we will deport you. I mean, I look at this and go, my gosh, what is happening? Keep in mind, by the way, that's not just law enforcement. Law enforcement is acting upon an act that was passed by Parliament. Meanwhile, there's riots in the streets. Riots. And Rita from Scottsboro texted in, and I said earlier that I tried to get ready for the show this morning, and good luck trying to find, stories that you can trust on it. And I'm looking at what she pulled up. She gave me a screenshot of her search. And it's all the same culprits. If you want to see what's going on with far-right violence, well, then you're going to get all the stories about, go to Google, you're going to get all the stories from BBC and NPR and, all the others. You have to go to stuff like, every once in a while, you got to go to, sometimes Sky News will help you out. It's kind of like Fox. And then Rebel News is actually got some great conservative sourcing. They'll interview people that, that the mainstream won't even talk to. But thank you, Rita, for your search. And they are blaming the far right. So all the mainstream media is trying to construe this as just far right agitators. It's really not. I'm sure there are some, but the truth be told, it's just folks who are fed up. It's just people who are tired of not feeling safe walking to their pub. They don't trust their daughters to be able to walk down the street because literally there are gang rapes happening in some of these migrant enclaves, and there are Sharia law being enforced in certain neighborhoods, and then you've got the mass migration straining the resources of the socialist Great Britain, and then you got Elon Musk saying, you know what, I ain't taking stuff down. It's a standoff right now. I want to reiterate, before I go too much further, that the UK government has implemented what, at the very least, we shouted down a couple years ago in America. The UK government has a disinformation unit. That's the national government, has a disinformation unit that, according to an article on Financial Times, has been compiling examples of posts it believes, social media posts, it believes are spreading disinformation and inciting violence. Now, what has something happened over there? I mean, of course, there's been a bend towards socialism. But the mass migration has been a major issue. It's been a political football. Net legal migration, they call it. New York Times has an article that came out in the fall of last year. Net legal migration into Britain climbed to almost 750,000 people in 2022. By the way, net legal is not gross. Net being some came in, but others died off or went out. And so they're tracking it as net because that makes the number lower. So something like 606,000 net up to 745,000, depending upon the estimates they're looking at, in 2022. That's a huge number, but that's the net. That's not the influx. That's not the gross every day. That's what was left over at the end of the year. And it talks about the fact that immigration is not falling, and that ever since Brexit, Britons have begun feeling like they've lost their automatic right to live. And it's having a major economic impact. It's having a major socio-cultural impact. And one conservative lawmaker told the Times Radio that the rise in net migration was completely unacceptable to the majority of the British people. And he called on the Prime Minister to stop the boats. But this is not slowing down. And so the biggest accusation you're seeing right now, too, in the midst of all of this crushing of Britain, is a claim of a two-tiered system of law enforcement. Elon Musk himself called out the new prime minister and called him two-tier Starmer, I believe. What we're seeing right now is that Great Britain is going the way that we could go if we're not careful. Let me get some text messages here and kind of wrap that up. James from St. Clair County says, the party in 1984 was called INGSOC. Yeah, I said that earlier in my monologue. Thank you very much. It was the English Socialism Party, the controlling political party. Yes, it was. And INGSOC was also supported by Newspeak, which was the language you were allowed to use. So, wow. How prescient does that sound? John from Huntsville says, Phil, when you lived in Britain, did you ever eat fish and chips? I did. Did you drink tea out of little fancy teacups? I did not. Did you watch Monty Python's Flying Circus on the telly? I did. Because that sounds like a bloody good time. It was.
Is that where crepes are from?
Dude, where are you at right now? Are you hungry?
Yeah, I am actually.
Crepes. No, I think you're in France.
Oh, okay.
I think you're in
Yeah,
France.
I'm confusing that.
Yes. Fish and chips in London is what John was talking about.
I guess I'm hungry.
You are. And suddenly I'm hungry. I just got fish and chips and tea and crepes. All right, Mike from Coxie, Alabama, says the UK sounds like a socialist dream. The more we vote in socialist leaders, the closer we come to that here. Indeed, that's why we got to watch it. And oh, by the way, we also cannot let loose of our constitutional protections. The idea that there would ever be an abridgment of our freedom of speech, we will be at what we're seeing in the UK. We'll be there in a heartbeat if we let it happen. Kim from Athens says, while X is the best place for information currently, and I'm glad for that, X is still censoring accounts. Yeah, I know it. I found out today through AI and raw coding that my account is labeled 8 different times as suppress. Wow. I need to probably look that up and see whether mine is, because I swear mine is. The last few weeks, myself and other huge accounts are reporting their impressions to be down a significant percentage. Do you think we'll ever have a truly free speech here again? I think with technology, we're going to have it's going to be a constant upping of the game. If like what I'm doing right now, and by the way, this ain't a cakewalk. Rightside Media, Kimmy just gave me a bridge to talk, so thank you. Rightside Media is a company that what we do is we work to promote conservative viewpoints that we feel like are not otherwise going to be heard. And we do it through written and social media and podcasting, to include video podcasting and this radio show. Rightside Radio is just one part of what we're doing. So that being said, Rightside Media is trying to fill a gap that I think you're talking about, Kim. And yet at the same time, we fight the same fight. But if you remember back in the day, technology at one point was radio. Radio was out there. There was no online. There was no social media. Radio was it. Rush Limbaugh and others like him broke the mold and began to bring the conservative viewpoint to the mainstream, and they couldn't stop it. Next came social media. Conservatives have a voice on social media too, but then they began to get suppressed. And so then you have the uprising of things like Elon Musk buying Twitter, and it got better, but then you've also got things like Rumble and Substack and other places that don't censor, and you can put your stuff. So what I'm saying is this, Kim, in answer to your question, free speech will always be a fight. As long as there are those who want to control you, they will fight your ability to speak. which means we have to constantly find the next avenue or enhance and protect the avenues that we currently have. It's a huge deal. Jay from Hartselle says, man, the Brits didn't learn anything from that butt whooping those 13 little colonies gave them. Badger from Athens says, salty cod, Athens Square, real good fish and chips. Nice. James from St. Clair says, we could be AMSOC. Yeah, there's INGSOC. We could be AMSOC. We're about there, brother. What else we got here for the break? Gina from Athens says, the audio of that guy in the UK sounds like they're going to come after people in the US even though they don't go to UK. Do you think our current government would cooperate and turn over a few people? No, I don't. There's no extradition on this kind of thing. You have to have extradition laws that relate, and I guarantee you that's not where we are at this point in time. Now, what they can do is say, we want those posts to be invisible in our country and demand that they be taken down on the servers that's what they're asking for right now. That's what they're asking for right now. And so, the idea that you've got friends in England who can't see your posts is just weird. That's like saying you can't pick up the phone and talk to somebody now. But they have the ability to do that, and that's what they're asking Elon Musk to do. John from Harvest, it's sad that the country that gave the world the Magna Carta is sinking into dystopian mess. May the Brits recover their heritage soon before it's too late. Yes, indeed. And Mr. Hill from Pumpkin Center says, from now on, dancing around an issue without addressing the question shall henceforth be known as the Harris Waltz. Yes, indeedy. And I had my dipper the other day. I called it the Waltz that we were doing right now. All right, we're taking a break. Big Rig, take us to the break. We will take that, come right back, and start moving towards the final half hour of a Friday. You guys stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right, and we will be back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. Just throwing those truth bombs everywhere. Pull the pin on a truth grenade. Paul from Decatur checked in. He says, Colonel Phil, a troubled or problem child that was a preparation for Ranger School. What's he saying? Anyway, I guess what he's saying is, that was my preparation for Ranger School and more. Maybe. Listen, brother, if you're talking about my time going to England and getting that 3-year timeout, I don't think I'd be here right now. Or at least I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, that's for sure. Kim from Athens again says, now get back, she says, don't read this one. Anyway, she gave me you know what? I got to thank you, Kim. She gave me the ability or the things I needed to do to check whether or not my social media is being throttled. I'm going to thank you very much. I'm going to check that out, Kim. John from Huntsville checking in again says, Phil, the Salem News Channel is a very good conservative news channel with some very good radio shows like the Jay Sekulow Show and Mike Gallagher. I know. I've talked to those people. Yes, they are. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. So, listen, here's the thing. You've got to watch your ability to search. One of the most frustrating things for me is when I am searching out a story, and this is a conservative viewpoint show, right? And you hear how I do it. You always hear me rattling paper. I've got literally every day the way it works is I get up early in the morning, spend some time with the Lord over a cup of coffee, and then I go into resourcing. And I'll spend 2 to 3 hours at home in the morning early. I'm talking like starting at 5 a.m., resourcing the show, getting all my stuff in order. And then I send all the links to Big Rig and to Alicia, who works here in the Rightside office. And they prep it out for me. They put the resources up, Big Rig does on the website, so you can get to them too if you want to. All you got to do is go to rightsidemedia.org on the live feed. There's a button that says resources. Just click on it. Every piece of paper you hear me rattling, there's a link to it. But then Alicia also puts it all into a way that I can sit here and have it in my hands and I can highlight it and scratch on it and rattle it in the microphone. I do all that. And when I do, the most frustrating thing is when I'm looking and I know for a fact what the story really is. Or I can see a story and I want to make sure that I'm getting the full scope of it. And all I can get is NPR and CNN and MSNBC and BBC. And it's like the inability to find a conservative. So I've got a host of conservative viewpoint news outlets that I go to check and see. And 9 times out of 10, I'll find stories that were not showing up in my Google search. Imagine that. Today was a prime example. Doing the whole thing on Crushing Britain, good luck finding the conservative viewpoint. Good luck. Everything was about right-wing rioters. Well, how about the images I see on Twitter of pro-Palestinian rioters? How about the images I see on social media of, folks being beaten in the streets and Muslim immigrants carrying bats as they go walking down the street? Is there violence on both sides? Potentially, but I'd like to be able to see both sides reported and not just one. Well, folks, in a minute when we get back from this next break, I'm gonna jump in on something that just happened. I mean, literally, you need to know this because your ability to search things online may have just taken an uptick, and we're gonna cover down on it. But the reality is, right now, a part of the whole argument about what you're allowed to think, what you're allowed to say or do, whether there's crimes of misinformation, the other piece of this is the suppression of information. The idea that Hunter Biden's laptop was held back from the world is one example of many. And right now, if you go to Google and you type in England riots, you will get a series of stories from what I would call left-wing mainstream media talking about right-wing activists. And folks, that is just a little piece of the overall picture. You're gonna have to find your sources. For me, I'm constantly going to Daily Wire, Daily Signal, and Daily Caller, And I go to the Bongino report because he pulls in a whole bunch of different folks, aggregates them all into one place where I can get them by topics. And then I'll go to Red State. And then, locally speaking, I'll go to 1819 News and to Yellowhammer News. And then I'll start searching out others, hotair.com, PJ Media. I mean, I've got an entire list that I run through trying to find the resources for this show. And the crazy thing is, 9 times out of 10, the stories I pull from their sites don't show up in my Google search. Imagine that. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state, the most beautiful, beautiful state, the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, Alabama. Y'all, I mean, this show goes way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi, all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, before I go any further, let me just pause briefly and remind you guys about Inspire Advisors. They are one of our sponsors on the show. Inspire Advisors, Paul Breyer was on the show just a little while ago, as a matter of fact, today. But Inspire Advisors is so good at what they do. This audience, I mean, listen, I know what kind of folks are out there listening to the show. You're the kind of people that stand up for what you believe in, conservative biblical values. And you're also the kind of people who are probably fighting to set aside for your retirement and make sure that you're doing what you can to be, good stewards. Well, you may be shocked to find out, though, that in doing so, that some of the things in your investment portfolio might just be all about things you say you don't stand for. You may find out some of your investments go to companies that support abortion or pornography or, human trafficking, whatever. It's crazy. Well, that happens all the time. And so maybe you would want to meet Paul Breyer and his team at Inspire Advisors. They are experts at what is known as biblically responsible investing, or BRI. It's a real thing. Biblically responsible investing. For free, no upsell, no catch, no fuss, no muss. They will meet with you in person, take a look at your portfolio, tell you what they see, maybe point out a few things, and tell you about some biblically aligned alternatives you might want to consider. So yeah, the bottom line is this. You want to know more about it, you can go to their website. That's Inspire Advisors. You can find them locally at moneypatternwealth.com. That's moneypatternwealth.com. Or you go to our website, rightsidemedia.org, go to the Rightside Radio Sponsors tab, and click on their logo. It takes you right to them. Check them out, y'all. I mean, Inspire Advisors is like conservative, godly, it's balanced, it's financial freedom. Inspire Advisors. All right, I just segued myself quite well. I was rather proud. As we went into that last segment, we came out of that segment talking about what happened in Great Britain and the crushing of Britain. And then the idea that not only is disinformation, misinformation being hunted down and arrested, you've also got the suppression of information. You cannot find certain things because there are search engines that we all rely on. It'd be like saying, well, I don't have insurance in Alabama with Blue Cross. There's other choices. You can get other choices. You can have your TRICARE. You can have your United. But everybody knows that Blue Cross is the behemoth. Well, in the world of online searching, the behemoth is Google. So if you're not familiar, there's a thing called antitrust law. All right, I'm going to put on my lawyer hat for a minute. Lawyer Williams. The Sherman Act was passed in the 1970s. And the Sherman Act deals with the idea that companies should not be allowed to so monopolize the market that they force out its competitors. Now, that's not the same thing as saying you had the better product. Google has a better product. They're more capable. They spend billions perfecting what they do. Their search engine algorithms and all of that are, probably bar none. But there are other out there. There's Bing with Microsoft. There's DuckDuckGo. You can have choices, but the behemoth, the one that occupies the entire market, the one that just sucks all the oxygen out of the search engine room, is Google. Well, Section 2 of the Sherman Act, passed in the 70s, makes it illegal for any company to do what's called monopolizing or attempting to monopolize or combining or conspiring to monopolize so that it breaks the free market. In other words, the market is no longer free, not just because the government got involved, but because the government turned a blind eye to one company dominating all the airspace to the point that no one else had room to move and forcing people out. Unfair competition. So the actions that a company takes to keep a monopoly, can be something that helps them to maintain unfair advantages, or even conspires to do away with their counterparts. And that market power, the government looks at Section 2 of the Sherman Act as being something that they have to pursue once in a while. Doesn't happen often, and it shouldn't. It should not. In fact, I get real leery of it. But it happened to Microsoft back in the day. It happened to the deregulation. Remember when we used to call it Ma Bell? You know, when Bell Telephone was everything? Alexander Graham Bell. Next thing you know, Bell Telephone. And there's only one source to get phone, and you can't do anything about it. Well, they got deregulated. Google just had their backside handed to them in court. What? Yes. Google, who can afford to pay every attorney in the nation if they wanted to. Google, like with a budget as big as California, Google was found to be in violation of antitrust laws. So it started just about, I think 2 years ago, that the Justice Department, and I'm a little shocked, by the way. That's why it's also leery when you realize it's the Biden Justice Department. But they went after Google because Google was considered to be a monopolist. Well, should we worry about this? I mean, why do we care? We turn on our phones. There's Google. We can just do stuff. Oh, guess what? They got exclusive deals with Apple and other key mobile application players. They had it written into the software so that when you turned on your new phone, bam, all you saw was Google. You had to go find the competition. The Judge Amit Mehta in the, which U.S. District Court? This is a U.S. District Court judge in, I don't know where she is, I'll find it in the District of Columbia. Wow. After having carefully considered and weighed the witness testimony and evidence, the court reaches the following conclusion. Google is a monopolist, and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly in violation of Section 2 of the Sherman Act. CNN says it's a stunning rebuke of Google's oldest and most important business. They blocked out all of their rivals, and they did so in such a way that it was considered to be an unfair advantage. They're going to appeal it. They are. But here's what that means to you and I. What that means to you and I is couple of things. One is you may see DuckDuckGo, you may see Bing, you may see all of them show up as icons on your brand new phone all at the same time because they can no longer have exclusive rights. But cell phones are ubiquitous now. Cell phones are, they're going to be there. They're a part of our life now. They're a staple. They're like cars. Cars exist. What would happen if you had cars and every car, no matter what brand made them, had to have a certain type of, let's pick one, had to have a certain type of radio made by one company. It didn't matter whether you liked it or not. You can go buy an aftermarket one if you want to. That's your choice, but we're going to make sure you only can get this one, which, what would that mean? 99.9% of the people would just stick with one that was there. That's what happened with Google. Now, how does it affect you and I? What it basically means is companies like Apple and Samsung and others who have been installing Google as the default search engine in their smartphones may change out in the near future. Google abuses dominance. Google got it handed to them. Now, the way Google sees it, like I said, they think you can go find an alternative anytime you want to. But I'm telling you, folks, this is a big deal. This is going to change. And part of this, the reason why I look at it and go, okay, I get it, is because of what I see every single morning when I have to search out the resources for a conservative show. Because we know that Google has been suppressing conservative view. You can find it if you know exactly where it is. But if you just Google it, which is the way most of us work now, it doesn't work. In this same vein, I'm going to end with this. In this same vein, not quite the same, but similar. Story here from the Daily Wire, which, by the way, Daily Wire is now suing because Google had them suppressed. You couldn't find Daily Wire. Daily Wire is a $200 million annual company, one of the largest impactful conservative voices in all of media, and Google had them suppressed. They're suing. But social media companies X and Rumble are now filing suit against a trade group. A trade group? Why is this important to me, Phil? Listen, what you're finding right now is there was a group called the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. Who is that? It's part of the World Federation of Advertisers. Who are they? This is a group that is made up of the largest advertising conglomerates in the world. and they banded together. This is a story on Daily Wire, Dateline, August 6th. They banded together in order to suppress who could advertise. What? Yes. What that basically means is if you had let's pick one, a conservative product, I don't know, Goya Foods or My Pillow, can't find them. In fact, what they would do was they would pressure news outlets and radio shows and others to drop that advertisement, or we're going to tell all of our other advertisers, because we're the biggest ones, we place all the ads, we're going to tell everybody to drop your show. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, selling ads for this show is like the bane of my existence. But it's part of what we do. And if nobody will advertise because they're being pressured by the third parties who intervene and do all the placement of the ads because of a social agenda, that's called suppression. That's market suppression. And X and Rumble are suing right now over that very thing. Because what they're saying is they had revenue forecasts that were cascading down because they realized that people were being forced not to advertise on X and Rumble because there was a conglomerate group that was not allowing the free market to be free. Y'all, I'm telling you, every single day, it's a race to keep up with what we hold dear. You know what? That's the truth. You cannot lay down for a minute. You cannot let off the gas. You cannot, for a second, take your eye off the prize. The left will come after you every single day. You have the firewall of a constitution, should you choose to use it. And what we're seeing right now in the online presence is crushing Great Britain. And what we're seeing in the online presence is at the very least being dealt with to some degree in our court system in the United States because we have a constitution. But the day we choose not to exercise those rights is the day they're gone. Rights mean nothing if we don't exercise them. Rights mean absolutely diddly if we choose to lay down and not actually exercise them. Because that's what a right is. You don't have a right when it's not needed. You have a right when it is needed. That's when you've got to play on it. That's when you've got to work it. That's when you've got to defend it. And some of what I just showed you today, Great Britain, I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to be 10 years from now looking at cameras telling me my car doesn't fit the mold. I don't want to be in a place where I can't post something on social media that's reasonable. I don't. And at the same time, I also don't want to get up in the morning and get ready for the show and not be able to find a story that I know is out there because some massive search engine is choosing to suppress conservative thought. It's a free country, but it's not free if we don't live like it is. All right, Big Rig, take me to that last break of the day, brother. We'll come right back and check on some text messages and take it all the way to the weekend. Oh my gosh, the weekend is about here. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Oh, man, it's go home time. I'm telling you, some of y'all are already in the car. Just be careful on the roads out there. Beautiful weather for the weekend. Looks like it's going to be in the 80s and sunny most of the weekend. So if you got some outdoor activities, though, just make sure you drink lots of water. I got a few text messages, and I'll go to the phone. James from St. Clair says, you need to look into the V for Vendetta book or movie, too. I've seen that. It has to do with riots in England leading to years of National Socialist lockdowns, had to do with immigrants. It's pretty amazing, yeah. The star of the 1984 film played the dictator in Vendetta, and Children of Men, he also points out. Thanks, James. Appreciate that. Luann from Huntsville says, Neil Oliver on GB News is incredible. I will check him out then. Thank you so much. John from Huntsville has the grades in for this Friday. He says the imaginary bronze medal winner is Big Rig with an A+. The imaginary silver medal A++ goes to Phil's guest caller. That'd be Paul Breyer. Which means the imaginary gold medal goes to Phil with an A++. Thank you very much. You don't hear any applause. You're not bothering to push the button because you got the bronze medal. Anyway, congratulations, however. Big Rig is the overall winner of the Rightside Radio Olympics with 5 gold medals, and Phil comes in second place with 2 gold medals, and the imaginary closing ceremony will take place in your own mind wherever you feel like it. John.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, John. Your creativity never ceases to impress. Let me go to the phones to somebody else who's pretty darn creative. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. How you doing, buddy?
I just hope your closing ceremony doesn't have anybody that's painted blue in it, okay?
No, there's no blue scrotums showing up in my closing ceremony.
No. Well, I might see some weird stuff tomorrow anyway. I'm going to a hippie fest tomorrow in Ohio.
Come again? You're going to a hippie fest in Ohio. Do you have your tie-dye shirt and your bell bottoms and your headband?
I got my fake dreads. I got my tie-dye. I got everything, man. I'm ready to go. I just hope I'll be able to pass my drug test once I get through breathing up there.
Just know that in your personal vehicle they don't have the same monitors that they do in your truck, right?
Oh, thank goodness.
Well, all right. Well, be careful on the road then. What do you think about all this stuff about crushing Great Britain and the sort of the big brother government stuff?
Well, we got out from under the thumb of the crown, a couple hundred years ago, a little plus. But maybe we need to help our brethren like France helped us out. I don't know. It's getting to the point now, I guess, where it's just a tyrannical government.
Yeah.
Basically, if you can't, if you're going to suppress everything, then then who knows what's going on?
What amazes me too, Jeff, is the mayor of London, who has all those cameras taking people. He got reelected even with all that going on, which just kind of boggles the mind.
Well, I mean, we got dumb people in New York that keep electing the same people in Chicago, and everybody is pulling for Kamala now. So, I mean, dumb people aren't just in the United States; they're all over the world.
That would be true. That'd be absolutely. Socialism has failed everywhere that it has been tried, but they always try it again for some reason. It's like the gift that keeps on giving.
Well, you know what? That's the definition of insanity.
Yes, it is.
And I'd say they're pretty much insane. At least in my book, they are.
Where are you on the road right now, man?
I was off today, man. I got a 3-day weekend. I'm standing here looking at the tall corn that surrounds my house.
Well, enjoy your weekend, my brother, and tell us all about the flower power when you come back on Monday.
I'll send you some pictures of some microbuses. They will be there.
All right, man.
Have a good one, buddy. Have a good weekend.
Take care. All right. Well, listen, all of y'all have an amazing weekend. I mean, I love what we do here, but we can't do it without you. And I know I say that a lot, and I hope you guys don't take it, that I take for granted for a second that y'all are out there. Because Big Rig and I sit here pushing buttons, talking in the microphones, and if y'all weren't out there, it would be for naught. The only reason why this show has been successful and the reason why we're here for over 3 years now is because we have an audience like y'all, and thank you so much for that. The opportunity to sort of share the view that so many of y'all already share, and to just remind you on a daily basis that, yes, I do believe that Jesus is Lord, America is great, Alabama is beautiful, and life is worth living. And oh, by the way, there's a lot more of us than there are them. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We'll see you Monday.